Hello and welcome to Short Focus Film Festival 2025 Q&A sessions, where we have the opportunity to sit down with the filmmakers behind some of the incredible works in the festival program. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Paige Levy, director of A Film About Fascism, which screens in Programme 2 at Close Up Cinema on Sunday, the 14th of September, and online from the 13th to the 21st of September. Paige, welcome to Short Focus Film Festival 2025. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. Yeah, really great to have your film as part of the program as well. It's a darkly funny film, I'd say. It certainly feels both political and deeply personal too. For audiences coming into this film fresh, can you just give us a quick synopsis of the film and talk a little bit about what inspired the story?
Absolutely. So really quick synopsis. A Film About Fascism follows a young and ambitious filmmaker as she attempts to make her own film about fascism, hence the title. And it follows her as she is working with this all-male cast and crew, and she is suddenly confronted by a propaganda of a different kind that spreads through her own film set. And she has to contend suddenly with what it means to be made an enemy. So it is a lot about looking at kind of these big ideas of how, countries fall to authoritarianism, how enemies are created, and sort of propaganda at large, and really distilling it down to a very small environment, and looking at how those big ideas affect us on a personal level. Yeah, and then it came out of a couple different things. One of which was I trained as an actor in London, and I had a classmate once say to me, it's like, well, I just don't think that audiences should be forced to think when they go see like art or theater and film. And I always say that made me so mad that I had to go write a whole script about it. And then in another sense, it really came from a Toni Morrison speech she gave at Howard University when she kind of spells out her kind of 10 steps to fascism, I think people call it. And I think a lot of different people have done this, like the whole idea of the stepping stones to authoritarianism. But obviously with Toni Morrison, the way that she puts it is so hauntingly beautiful and so succinct and just so thought-provoking. And the first step of this is all about the creation of an enemy. And that was really what I wanted to explore with the film, was just looking at this first step, step one, and seeing again in this sort of microcosm of a film set, how that might eventually get to step 10. So yeah.
When we announced the selection of your film for this year's festival, I detected a note of surprise. Given the start title and subject matter, have you found it difficult to get the festival picked up by other festivals? Have your audiences also kind of responded well? Are they taking it in the spirit that you intended?
Yeah, absolutely surprised. It's been a strange year to be submitting a film like this around to festivals, for sure, especially in the US, where a lot of the places we've been submitting have been in the US. And I'm obviously from there, if you couldn't tell from the accent, but it's been weird. I think one of the strangest things, honestly, is how people have been, after they watch it or something like that, they'll come up to me and say like, oh my gosh, it's so prophetic, almost like, oh, you're predicting the future. And it's like, well, no, I wasn't, not at all. Like, it's all been, very starkly apparent. It's the way, it feels like the world is heading, and these sort of systems or government are turning. It's all of the, the tracks have been laid for so long. So it is funny to have, because I started writing this in 2021, actually, to have written it then and been reflecting on the world as it existed then, up until when we filmed in 2023, to have it still be so resonant and to take on new resonances now that people are finally getting a chance to see it. It's a very strange experience, to be sure. And yeah, I don't think that it's I don't think it's a coincidence that it's been hard to program too. It's even just from the title alone, it's a rough time out here to be making art that looks at these kinds of political topics. But I think it's important. And yeah, having audiences respond to it beyond that, when you were saying it's darkly funny, I was so happy because I was so worried that no one else would find it funny like I found it funny. But that's honestly been one of the nicest things, is to be watching it in a crowd and hear people laugh at the jokes I was trying to make, or to have them come up to me afterwards and talk about, you know, what they found funny, like what they really resonated with. It's been really wonderful. I think I've been very lucky to have the audiences I've had for it who just open themselves to it, even from the first shot, which is, as I only really discovered when I first got to see it in a crowd, really alarming. I didn't even fully, you know, grasp kind of how in your face it is, even though I very intentionally made it in your face. But anyway, yeah, it's been a wonderful experience, and that's kind of balanced out some of the existential crisis of it all, and having to think more about the politics of it all, which has been a very welcome kind of, you know, relief almost.
It's quite funny that you mentioned some audiences, their kind of take on it is that it is prophetic, when honestly it kind of feels, especially almost, I guess, with the I want to say cyclical nature of the film in a way, because it's almost about how history repeats itself and how certain ideas can spread quite easily, you know, but that's a story that's been told so many times in so many interesting ways. Yeah, it's often surprising to kind of, and I imagine it was for you as well, to get that kind of response where people obviously feel like this kind of thing has never happened before.
Absolutely.
One of the things I really enjoyed about the film actually is the formal playfulness of it as well. It could almost be called a film about fascism.
Yeah.
How important was that film within a film structure in shaping the way that you wanted to make your statement?
That's a great question. I call myself often like a student of Bertolt Brecht, who, if anyone doesn't know, was a great theater practitioner, super political, and had this whole theory about like epic theater and the idea that an audience should never really be, you know, fully immersed in a story. There should always be an element of them being aware that they're watching a play or a film or something like that. And I love that concept. I think it's so useful as a tool to watch a piece of art, but then also constantly be looking back at yourself through it. And I think that film within a film structure really came from that, because I really liked the idea of getting a chance to see this film within a film that's sort of more explicitly fascist, I guess you could say. And then also seeing the creation of it, seeing the behind the scenes, and playing those two parts of the film against each other, I think also allows for the audience to play it against themselves and really think more critically and analytically about how they might fit within the story. And that comes from the kind of alienation from, oh, I can't sit back and just watch the film and feel all the feelings. So that really sort of stemmed from that. And in the film, they talk about it too. And one of the things I'm most interested in exploring is the idea of like catharsis, which is another thing that Brecht looked at a lot. And the idea that even though catharsis at the end of a piece of art can feel great, doesn't always lead an audience to take action after they've seen something, because it feels satisfying. It feels like all the ends are tied up and everything's great. So I liked playing with the idea of like who owns catharsis, who gets to have it at the end of the day. And then also whether or not the audience of the film watching it can have it either. And I think it's probably some might find the ending somewhat cathartic, but I don't think everyone would. And I think that's a really interesting thing that people can explore for themselves and think about, of whether what they were able to take from the end of it. and what the film made them think about and want to do. Yeah.
There's some really terrific performances throughout. It's obviously not easy to convincingly play an actor floundering or excelling through a take, or portraying a director gradually unraveling in pursuit of a creative truth. What was your own experience in guiding and shaping those performances?
I had the most wonderful time filming on set. I was really lucky to work with the whole cast and the whole crew. It was actually really funny because we shot it up in upstate New York, and we were all packed into, a lot of the crew stayed in the cabin we shot in, and then the cast and myself and my producer stayed at like a little tiny Airbnb a little bit away. So we were all very, tight together. And there was definitely a joke of how we essentially recreated the situation that led to the film, all of the conflict exploding in the film. But we all had a really wonderful time. I think we wanted to really intentionally work with a lot of women and non-binary crew. And that really shaped the experience as well. I just remember the first day of shooting, we were all sitting down to dinner, and suddenly everyone started sharing their like awful experiences they had had on set before. And even the crew themselves, taking from the film and thinking about how it reminded them of moments in their own lives, which was gratifying as a director, but also, sad to hear. But it was great. Everyone was so supportive, and working specifically with the actors was so wonderful. Joanna and Willem, who play the two leads of the film, had such natural chemistry from the get-go. We had one rehearsal before we went up to the Catskills to shoot, and even from the first moment, they were on top of it. It was really wonderful. And I just felt really lucky to have people who were so willing to go with some of the more crazy ideas, who were willing to just dive in and say, yeah, that's what we're doing. And I'm going to fully commit to being the villain. I'm going to fully commit to, screaming at the woods at the top of my voice at 7 a.m. It was really, really, I just felt so lucky. They made a lot of my job very easy, for sure.
Yeah, they were really brilliant performances. Clearly a cathartic process for them as well, and for yourselves in making the film as well. Where did you actually find your performers? What was the casting process like?
Yeah, I mean, probably in line with a lot of short films, it was a lot of friends. I'm very lucky in that I grew up in New York City, and I grew up doing theater with a lot of people who were going to pursue it professionally. So my friends were also luckily professional actors. So it was great. It was a lot of just pulling in people that I'd met in the past or friends of friends. Willem I had never met before we started, but I knew someone, his partner, and so they connected me with him, and it just went from there. And it was the kind of like serendipitous thing of, I didn't have, the resources for doing a big casting search or something like that, or just finding total strangers. But it's always like the people are the right people to work with is what I think for a lot of things. So it was great. I got extraordinarily lucky to have known them, and that they were willing to do it. So it was great.
That's perfect. Sounds like great fortune on your side there. I mean, you touched on it a little bit earlier, I suppose. The political climate at the moment in the US is obviously very strained, very tense. A lot of controversy around the politics at the moment. Given that current climate, what are your thoughts on the future of filmmaking? Do you think it's becoming harder or perhaps more necessary to make films that are as bold and as confrontational as this one?
Yeah, it's absolutely becoming harder. I mean, the state of art making under any authoritarian regime is always one of the things that is first threatened and destroyed, because it's so often there is more use for art as, you know, propaganda for the state, propaganda for fascist politics, and I think they view it often as a threat. So even in the U.S. right now, we're seeing, you know, Trump has taken over the Kennedy Center and canceled a whole season of work. And the NEA is now only funding projects, or the National Endowment for the Arts is only funding projects that explicitly support and celebrate America. And they have canceled grants that have already landed in, you know, organizations' bank accounts, because they work with trans individuals, because they, you know, have DEI policies, because they are doing something that the, you know, that the government finds un-American. And so it is becoming harder, and it's also becoming harder because a lot of powerful people in artistic industries become scared, and they want to tiptoe around, you know, the harder, more bold topics. They don't want to make a political statement because that cuts into profits. And we see it all the time. I mean, Hollywood collaborated with the Nazis before the height of World War II, because Germany was a big film market, and they didn't want to lose it. So yeah, long story short, it's absolutely becoming harder. It's becoming harder everywhere. But I think that, at least what I hope to do is, you know, I think turning the attention back towards, well, what can we make then? We don't have much of a budget. We don't have the big support. We don't have anywhere we can distribute this. What can we make anyway? I think there's so much to be found in, you know, building in the cracks and building in these small places and building community through the art that we can make, that we can afford to make, that we can make without any kind of backing or support. And there is so much good to be done in these little small places, and the places that, you know, fly under the radar or that feel like not a lot. And yeah, it's just, oh, I feel so passionately about it. I get so like emotional talking about it, but I think now is really the time for, you know, indie filmmaking in the truest sense of the word. Things that are just thrown together with friends and people you vaguely know, and with no budget or fancy things or lighting or anything. And it's just time to tell stories and provoke thought and make people want to act. Act in the sense of act politically, not necessarily act as an actor, but you know, that too. I read this quote once that it was just like, the point of art is to nourish the freedom in those who know themselves to not be free. And that really has stuck with me for many, many years, because it feels so true. And I hope that I hope that, and I also hope for lots of others, that we just continue making that kind of work, even if it doesn't have the major commercial success that, you know, people might want or expect, because it won't. It just won't. But that's okay, because people are doing, you know, the good work anyway. So yeah.
Right. That's really powerful stuff. And, you know, I think your passion is obviously very clear, not just from your response to my question, but also, you know, just through the film itself, you know, whether it is through quite, you know, overt statements, through its humor, also just through its visual qualities as well. And that was, you know, something that I noted as well. You mentioned obviously you'd filmed much of it in upstate New York, and you know, the locations are exquisite. For me, the film has a really kind of striking, almost painted quality when you look at the interiors as well, and sort of, yeah, juxtaposed against the really kind of large expanses. Who would you say were kind of your key filmmaking or visual influences?
Oh man, well, first of all, I have to shout out my cinematographer, Emily Kordovich, because none of this would look as good as it does without her just like incredible, awe-inspiring talent. And they are such an incredible cinematographer. And this was my debut film. I worked directing and in theater for a while, but this is the first time I directed film, and again, it was another massive stroke of luck that they were willing to hop on the project with me and work with me on building this. So have to give credit where credit is due for that, because yeah, they're just phenomenal. And in terms of the visual style, we looked a lot at like Tarkovsky's like Polaroid photos, and a lot of his kind of visual language and a lot of his films for inspiration. There's such a dream quality and such gorgeous use of I don't know, it almost feels like a kind of otherworldly kind of visual that exists there. So we pulled a lot of inspiration from that. And then just kind of from all over the place. I mean, I am a huge fan of anyone sort of willing to take a really long static shot and just sit there and build beautiful things out of it. You could probably get my theater background from that, because I'm just like, great, we're just gonna watch the actors do stuff. So it was a whole lot of that. I mean, I watched Charlotte Wells in a way was a big one. Just there was the kind of held quality of After Sun, and the way we were just able to watch these characters exist in the world around them against these like stunning, beautiful scenery. And we just have these quiet moments. That was a huge one. And then a lot of like Technicolor things, old films. I wanted as much as I can to like get as close to Technicolor, you know, name a filmmaker who doesn't want to do that at some point. But a lot of like old movie musicals and like The Wizard of Oz even were all big kind of touch points in a very weird way. I maybe didn't expect that fully going into it, but it just felt right that the colors should be so vivid, and there should be such a sense of drama and theatrics in all of it. It's very much a film within a film, but I always talked about through the, you know, kind of the editing process and when we were working on the color and everything, that it almost feels like the seams of the film itself, the whole film, start to fray as we get further and further along. So I liked thinking about how we might make things feel heightened. And a lot of the inspiration for it came from, kind of old classics.
It's incredible to hear this is actually your first film. Just, you know, I mean, having seen the film a few times now and hearing you talk about it, you certainly sound like a very accomplished filmmaker, and it's
yeah.
And so, you know, that obviously makes me and the rest of us at Short Focus very excited to see what happens next, of course, in your filmmaking career, but also just how our audience will receive this one as well. I'm sure, you know, with the kinds of films that we like to show, that it will do very well at our festival too. What are you working on next? What can we look forward to seeing from you in the future?
Well, we're currently working on a couple different things. I went and worked on a bit of theater for a while. I'm currently writing a script that's a lot about puppets and militant art groups, which is filling me with joy. And I hope will eventually fill others with it as well. But yeah, that's in the pipeline, and it's been really fun to work on and trying to get a team together, and it's been great. So I'm very excited to also have a chance to work more film and to create lots more things.
Excellent. Long may it continue. Thank you so much again for your time today. It was a really enjoyable and insightful conversation. It's really lovely to meet you. Thank you once more for being part of the festival as well. And I wish you the best of luck with the film on the festival circuit as well.
Thank you. And thanks so much for programming us. We're all really, really excited to see it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.